How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you are first trying to learn about it, so this is the place where you can ask all of your questions about politics, and you don't got to worry about getting judged or roasted or debated or ridiculed. Back when I didn't know anything about politics, I was always really scared to ask people questions about it. I wasn't sure what questions were okay or which ones would make me seem like a big old dum dum, and so I was really nervous about it, and I was really intimidated by it. And I wish that I had had a place where I could go and ask questions like this. And so, Alex, good to see you again. Thank you for coming back. So yeah, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know. There's not going to be any roasting or debating or ridicule. This is not one of those shows where I call people on and I yell at them for having different politics than me. This is not for fighting. This is for talking and meeting and exchanging ideas. So listen, maybe you're somebody on the right and you've always wanted to know why people on the left are the way that they are. This is your opportunity, man. I'm a real life Democrat just sitting here, and I will take all of your questions in good faith. Heat Storage says, can you say three good things about America? Sure. America is the birthplace of jazz music. America was at the forefront of the entertainment industry. And America, the promise of America is in a free and equal multicultural and multi-religious society where people can just live and let live. There you go, Heat Storage. Kieran Varma says, can I join a chat? I usually don't have people on, but stick around. Maybe you convince me otherwise if you ask some good questions. Alex Sassone says, what made you a Democrat? It was a combination of things. Like, I was reading a lot and seeing a lot about what Republicans were doing. It seemed kind of shitty. And so I first became like an anti-Republican, and then I was seeing all the things that the Democrats stood for and that all they had done in the past. And then I was like, all right, well, this seems to be a party that is much more aligned with my values. In addition to it being the best chance of voting Republicans out of office. All right, thank you already for the questions, everybody. Thank you for the initial questions, and we are just getting started today. So if anybody's got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can be like trying to learn a new language because there's all these different three-letter agencies, and we're just referring to people by their last names, and we just throw around words like reconciliation and continuing resolution and filibuster and stuff like that. And if you don't know who these people are or what those agencies do or what those words mean, it can be really difficult to just like be part of the conversation. Alex Sassone says, I listened to what you said and the new news sources were very helpful. Oh, I'm really glad, Alex. Can you tell me one thing that you read or that you learned that you thought was really interesting? It's Kimber says, why do Republicans struggle with groupthink so much? I know that there is some data to suggest that because Republicans, en masse statistically have less of an education than the rest of the population, that they are potentially more susceptible to conspiracy theories and propaganda and groupthink. But I would encourage you to try to look past that. Like, we're trying not to demonize a certain group of the population. We're trying to like reach out with them and come to accord with them. But yeah, I would say that there are probably things that you learn when you get a high school education or a college education that kind of inoculate you against things like groupthink and conspiracy theories. Which again, that does not mean that those people are stupider or less capable of the rest of us. And that is also not to say that people on the left don't suffer from that exact same illness. There are definitely people on the left who get conned by propaganda on social media, who get who are what do you call it, swayed by groupthink and conspiracy theories, etc. Johnny Calder said, "Did you see Trump at the G7? He looked like a buffoon. I mean, he looks like a buffoon everything he does." Let's see here. I don't know who Karen Reed is, Dunce Chief. It's Kimber says, "Why are they so focused on owning libs instead of doing what's best for the country?" So there is a completely inorganic culture that has sprung up around the idea of what it means to be a Republican. It is completely manufactured by the billionaire class and the Republican politicians that are working in league with them. It is part of creating a cultural identity around being a Republican, and creating a set of values that sort of like create an insular community that is really hard to break out of. If you read people who escaped from like the Republican towns or the Republican community, it really is there are a lot of social consequences to thinking outside of the bubble or speaking out against the communities and things like that. So yeah, it is manufactured, it is created. The billionaire class made this be the thing that they wanted it to be. Chapo Matty said, "Do them with them were Democrats or Republicans?" Can you clean up that question? I'm not sure what it means. Let's see here. Dan Blackroy, great to see you again. Rich and Janet Wave says, "Where are all the Democrats' voices against the Iran invasion? Are they all bought off?" I haven't seen anybody speaking about it specifically. I have seen a lot of Democrats say that they are concerned and they will try to stop America from joining the war, from assisting Israel. And it's the usual suspects. The progressive wing is going to be the loudest about not assisting Israel. The centrists are going to be a little bit more like, well, they have right to defend themselves and we should help them out, blah, blah, blah. And the Conservative Party, the Republicans, are going to be split down the middle between the warmongers, who are like, we should 100% go in there and do regime change, and the isolationists, who are like, we should not be helping anybody. But I will say this, that there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And so I will give certain Democrats a little leeway if, they are a little focused on ICE acting like Trump's personal Gestapo and Trump accepting billions of dollars in dark money bribes from foreign nationals through his meme coin and shit like that. But yeah, I think that if you're going to find a Democratic politician who's going to be mealy-mouthed or milquetoast around, condemning Israel for this attack or condemning Israel for their war crimes, fucking primary those Democrats, like yell at those Democrats. But also, you got to be full-throated in recognizing that any Republican politician would be worse on this issue and is currently worse on this issue. Excellent questions so far, everybody. U.S. Army 79 says, "Liar. What do you think I lied about?" Rich and Janet Wave says, "Thank you. I appreciate you as well." User a bunch of numbers says, "Enough about the politics. How about you let me $10? Let you $10 what?" Sarah ZMC says, "Are we going to war?" So I think it's probably unlikely that we're going to fully be in this war against Iran with Israel. I think it's much more likely that we do kind of like the soft support that we've been doing for a long time, where we send them money and weapons and we use our aircraft carriers to help shoot down projectiles from Iran into Israel. But I don't think that it is fully impossible that we do that, because Trump is an idiot and a fully corruptible human being. So if it is made in his best interest to do this, then he will do this. Like, he has no allegiance to being anti-war or any allegiance to having a more moral viewpoint or making sure that we don't send, young Americans to go die over there, It's Kimber says, "As a marriage minister, I am volunteering to marry as many immigrants to U.S. citizenship as possible." I think that's wonderful, but I got some really bad news for you, It's Kimber, because that's not stopping ICE. ICE does not give a shit if you are a citizen, a veteran, a legal resident, if you have zero criminal history. They are rounding up and deporting anybody that they fucking feel like. They have already said, ICE has admitted that fewer than 10% of the people that they have rounded up are guilty of doing like major crimes, which is that was their entire fucking thing that they said they were going to do, was only deporting the worst of the worst. And they're already out there saying like most of the people, 90% of the people, do not have like any serious criminal history. Jamie says, "What happens if you dodge the draft?" Well, we don't have a draft right now, but I guess if we got another draft, then people would go to jail for dodging the draft. That's what happened during Vietnam, I believe. Sarah ZMC says, "They get paid per person, so they don't care." I don't know if that's true, but they do have a quota, and they do. If they don't meet their quota, then Stephen Miller yells at them and steals their soul. Let's see here. Lauren, good to see you again. Rogue Dog Villain says, "There is your disclaimer, buddy." I don't know what you mean by that. Jamie says, "What all nations are not controlled by our banking system?" That is a really good question, Jamie. I'm not really sure what the answer to that is, because I believe there's something like over 200 different countries in the world, and They are all very intimately connected via trade and finance and national corporations and shit like that. So yeah, I don't know, Jamie. I'm so sorry, I can't answer that one. Sylvia Perez says Trump didn't go to jail. That is true. He did not go to jail, and that is entirely the fault of the Republican Party and the conservative judges on the Supreme Court. They, what do you call it? They blocked for him, basically. They gave him cover. Alex Sasson says, "Is ICE just a racist organization?" So, I think it's difficult to say. Like if you have an organization that's made up of a bunch of different people, can you just automatically say that all of those people are racist or bad? I believe that they are a rogue organization. Like they are not operating under the regulations put forward by Congress, by what they have to be doing, as far as like their budget and their legal requirements and stuff like that. I will say this, like it is weird to work for ICE. Like I think if you get a job with ICE and you know what ICE does, I think it would be weird if you were not a racist person who was doing that. Like you should be resigning if that is what you're doing. Let's see here. Lauren, yeah, I mean that's accurate, but let's see here. Cynthia Masai says, "Why isn't anyone doing anything about what Elon admitted to about election fraud and the Epstein files?" So the thing that you got to keep in mind where Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all Republican politicians and mouthpieces are concerned is that they're liars and they just say a lot of shit. And sometimes they get you on wild goose chases by saying something and then you're like, oh my God, they admitted it. And then you can't find the evidence. And then they say they didn't mean it. And then you're arguing about what he said and what he meant. And it just ends up being a massive waste of time. So, as long as the FBI is under the control of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who are Trump lackeys, if there was incriminating evidence linking Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein that we don't already know about, that evidence is never going to come out. I mean, I don't understand what people need more. Like, we have all this video footage of the two of them together. We have Epstein saying that they're like really good friends. They're basically like best friends and shit like that. So yeah, I don't know what the deal is there. As far as like election interference and stealing the election using computers, we just got to wait for that case in Rockland County or Buckland County. I can never remember the name in New York. We got to see what happens. They're in discovery phase right now. Lauren says hypothetically, someone takes care of. Lauren, I don't know. It's a dangerous time. I don't think that Trump being in the picture or out of the picture makes it any more or less possible that we go to war with Iran. I still would put, the possibility that we are fully engaged in that war at a very low percentage. I think it's much more likely that we do the kind of soft support, like sending Israel money and weapons and using our aircraft carriers to shoot down projectiles that are on their way into Israel. Alex says, MAGA crying that protesters are violent, but ignoring Kyle Rittenhouse January 6th dead senators. There was also somebody got shot and killed during the No Kings protests in Salt Lake City. Somebody got hit by a car of somebody who was angry at the protests. It's fucking terrifying, man. It is a really terrifying time. And I would hope that we can bring people into the light and be like, look, this is what your side is doing to us. And, we are happy to, full-throatedly condemn any kind of political violence. Will you do the same? Apple says, didn't you shame us for not wanting Kamala because of the genocide? Yeah, I think everybody should have voted for Kamala because it's worse now for the people in Palestine than if Kamala Harris would have been president. So I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at there, Apple. Like, if you're trying to make it seem like I suddenly care about this issue, like I have been a full-throated advocate for condemning Israel and not sending them money and weapons, let's see here. Ronaldo Prat says, would you ever vote for any Republican? Probably not, because it's not just the person that I'm voting for, it's the platform. And so even if there's like a good Republican, their platform is still ignoring climate change, ignoring gun violence, cutting taxes for the rich, fucking everybody else over, shit like that. Alex says, besides all of the bad things, was the original idea of ICE good? Difficult to say. ICE started after 9/11. They sort of like created an agency that was supposed to assist with I want to say, I forget which agency they were supposed to assist with. I think it was, fuck me, something to do with national security, but I can't forget. Yeah, I can't remember the name. But anyway, so they were just supposed to assist. They were supposed to be another arm of national security, and then they just went rogue during the Bush administration. Obama tried to rein them in. They told them to go kick rocks. That's basically, you know, that's basically it. Jamie said, I heard a speech of a higher rated man years ago in the military give a list of countries that we plan to go to war with due to the banking system. I mean, I find that to be a little thin. You know, we got to double and triple check all of our sources, and one person can go out there and say anything. You know. Let's see here. Tyler Adams says, should we keep funding Israel? No. We already have a rule on the books that says that we are not allowed to give money or weapons to nations that are guilty of doing war crimes. Israel has been found guilty of doing war crimes, so ergo, it is illegal for us to continue sending them money and weapons. Opinions on amnesty. Can you be more specific? Let's see here. Mia says, do you support what's happening in the world right now? You'll have to be more specific, Mia. There's a lot of things going on. Homeland Security. Thank you, Jesus. Fucking hell, man. I don't know why that fucking, was off my noodle for so long. Okay, here. Let's see here. Dan Blackroy, the Republican Party has been stoking this rhetoric for a long time. Is the point? Yes, Dan Blackroy, accurate. The reason why we are seeing increased political violence, increased right-wing political violence, people targeting Democratic politicians and people of the No Kings protest, etc., is because people like Donald Trump are encouraging their supporters to be violent and not condemning violence when it happens, and pardoning people like the January 6th insurrectionists who did violence. It is a clear message. We like that you are doing this. Please continue doing more of this. If you get arrested and go to jail, we'll pardon you, etc., etc. So yeah, this is part of the work that we have to do, is by taking power away from those people, we can decrease the amount of political violence that is occurring in our country. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Flamingo 1973 says, why aren't more people upset with DJT's behavior at the G7? Flamingo Mo, I would put that in the bucket of there's so many things to be upset about, like, him acting like a fucking asshole and going to bat for Vladimir Putin. It's just par for the course, Yeah, I think we can all suffer from like rage fatigue and appearing like a bunch of, joyless scolds in the political culture and zeitgeist. So yeah, I don't know. Just seems like we got more pressing issues on the table than that. But yeah, we should all be upset about it. We should all be upset about what ICE is doing. We should all be upset about the grifting and the conning. We should all be upset about Trump going to bat for Russia and Israel, and we should be upset about them, defunding the National Institute of Health research projects, and scientists and doctors are leaving the country, and there's massive layoffs of veterans happening in the government, and store shelves are going empty, and retail sales is going down, and layoffs is going up. But like, there's a lot going on, Alrighty, let's see here. Jesus says, do you think Trump is racist? I think that's one of the most obvious racists on the planet. Yes, 100%. He does things that are racist. He says things that are racist. His policies are racist. He's been racist since the fucking 80s, when the United States government sued him for discriminating against black people when he was renting his apartments. His dad was in the KKK. He's probably in the KKK. Yeah, he's a fucking racist. Alrighty, Alex Sassone says, is this ICE right now acting like 40s Germany? 100%. There are extremely prescient similarities between the Gestapo during the Stasi era and what ICE is doing right now. All right, No Name says, do you think the Trump administration should have implemented an amnesty program similar to Reagan's? I can't. That's a little over my head. No Name, I apologize for that. I'm unfamiliar with that policy of Reagan's. I wish I could talk more about it. Mia says, is it true that Trump cheated on the 2024 election? So Mia, we don't know yet. For a long time since the election, data scientists have been combing through the numbers and saying there's something weird going on here. But it wasn't that substantive. It was just, data science, and weird things happen in politics all the time. So nobody really made anything of it. Well, there's currently a case happening in New York where it appears as though vote counting machines changed outcomes, and people's certain votes didn't get counted. And the case appears to have some legs to it because it is moving forward to the discovery stage. And so it is possible. It is possible that a company, I forget the name of it, it's called like V&R Research or something like that, which had access to voting machines in like 40 plus districts. It's possible that they uploaded something to the voting computers that changed vote totals. We don't know if there is more than a circumstantial connection between that company and Musk and Trump and shit like that. But yeah, it is. I am the least skeptical than I have ever been that vote totals could have been changed. We still have to wait if things come out. We don't want to be conspiracy theorists. We don't want to jump the gun. Let's see here. Jesus says, what could be the reasons Trump hasn't been impeached yet for this term? Jesus, the reason is because Republicans are in charge of every branch of government right now. They're in charge of the White House, they are in charge of Congress, and they are in charge of the judiciary in the sense that they have a supermajority on the Supreme Court. So, if you want to impeach a president, you need half of the House of Representatives, and if you want to remove him from office, you need 2/3 of the Senate, 67 seats. And Democrats don't have that. Only Republicans, if they decided to work with Democrats, they would be able to do that. But the Republican Party is either fully on board with what Trump is doing, all the illegal shit, all the unconstitutional shit, all the blatantly immoral and racist shit and hurtful shit that he's doing, or they're scared of him. They're either scared of being primaried, or they're scared of like physical threats from his base of supporters. Roger Morlock says Democrats lie. That's not accurate, Roger Morlock. Also, that is not a question, so you are out of here. All right, Bree says, why did Trump run as an anti-war candidate only to betray everyone and want to involve us in war? Well, short answer, Bree, is that he's a liar, and he will say whatever he wants to whoever is sitting in front of him to get what he wants. He wanted to be president so he could stay out of jail and use the power of the presidency to make himself billions and billions of dollars richer. He basically wants to sell America for parts, and that is what is currently happening. He wants to be a fascist dictator. That is the reason why he is trying to double the size of ICE. They can work as his personal Gestapo, and he can arrest all of his enemies and throw them in jail and send them to concentration camps. He does not care. He doesn't care about not going to war. He's a liar. He's an opportunist. If it is in his best interest to go to war, we will go to war. User a bunch of numbers says, haha, this guy. I don't know what I said that was funny. Coca-Cola Cowboy says, we looking at a liar right now. That's not a question, so you are out of here. All right. No Name says, why do you hold the belief that Republican voters aren't evil? Doesn't it take two to tango? So I'm sure that there is a portion of the Republican voter base that are bad people. If you are somebody who is rich and you vote for Republicans because you want tax cuts, even though you know it's going to hurt everybody else, and you know that to get those tax cuts, a lot of people in marginalized communities are going to get hurt because of the other shit that Trump is doing, then yeah, you're a bad person. If you're somebody who's like an unashamed racist and you're like, I like the fact that Trump is racist and he does racist shit, and I am happy, even if he's fucking me over, at least he's fucking over a brown person harder, that person is obviously a bad person. But I've traveled all over this country as a stand-up comedian, and I've met hundreds, thousands of people of all walks of life, all different kinds of religions and ages and political ideologies. And what I've come to understand is that people are a victim of the information environment in which they have grown up and in which they live. And so we're all susceptible to this. We were all susceptible to groupthink and propaganda and misinformation. And so maybe if you or I had been born in that town, to that family, going to that church, watching that Facebook feed, then we would also be fooled by that information. There are potentially a lot of really good people out there who vote Republican because everything that they are reading is telling them that Democrats are evil, that they are letting criminals and rapists into this country, that they cheat and steal for elections, and that they love killing babies and shit like that. And they want to take your guns so that they can control your life and tell you what to do and how many hamburgers you can eat and shit like that. And it's all bullshit, obviously. But, that's what happens when billionaires put billions of dark money dollars into funding propaganda that convinces people to vote for Republicans or not vote at all, man. So yeah, and I've done this in the past. Like I've done I've done a lot of Republican voters are idiots and they fucking suck and they're evil and blah, blah, blah. And I've been rewarded for that. You know, my videos that are more like that than just my straight up, you know, political commentary videos have done very, very well in the, you know, social media algorithms. But, you know, I don't know. I have come to a realization that I don't think that that is productive anymore. That it kind of perpetuates this idea that the voters should fight each other when we should all be working together, when we're recognizing that the game is one thing. It is the billionaire class and the Republican Party working together to fuck us all over. And part of that fucking us all over is convincing us that other voters are our enemy, or poor people, or trans kids, or immigrants. Or if you're progressive, then centrists are your enemy. If you're a centrist, then progressives is your enemy. I just think I need to fight against that, against those narratives. Rocket 2002 says yes to get rid of the Democrat elites. Let's see here. It doesn't really seem like you are here in good faith, Rocket, so I'm just going to get rid of you right away. Alrighty, let's scroll down to the bottom of these comments. Alex Sassoon says, can LA solve this problem on their own, or do they need Trump's help? They can 100% solve this problem on their own. They did not ask for this. Trump is forcing the military into California against the wishes of its governor, its mayor, the Los Angeles Police Department. Nobody wants this. Not even the people in the National Guard want this. Alrighty, let's see here. Mia says, what are your thoughts on the people supporting Trump? Why do they neglect all the evidence? Mia, same thing as what I just said. It's just they're part of an information bubble. And I believe that it is the job of every human being to try to get people out of that bubble. Because listen, people get their news off of social media. The majority of people in this country get their news off of social media. And social media is very good at finding exactly the kind of bullshit that you will believe and sending you a bunch of videos with that bullshit in it. And that bullshit is always very specific. It will convince you to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all. Those are like the two main things. And, you know, additional, you know, benefit if we can get people to fight. Like that's a big thing that's part of the algorithm as well. It's like fight. Are you a progressive? Well, did you hear what the centrist said? Did you hear what this Republican voter said? Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. So let's assume then that the internet, all of social media, all of you know, right-wing media, it has all been captured by the billionaire class, and they're going to use all of their money, vastly more resources that you and I or anybody that we know has, in order to push these propaganda narratives and keep us divided. The only way that we can fight that is by talking to people in real life, in person, people like you and me, you know? And that's our job, because there is no organization that has the power to fight against what the billionaire class has, you know? Like Democratic Party doesn't have as much money as them, doesn't have as much political power as them. You know, they want to help us, like they're on our team, but they just don't have enough of what they would need to fight the richest people on the planet all working together with the Republican Party and the Supreme Court. Like, we have to do the work, you know? But I hear you, like, it's very frustrating. I get it. Gary Ruat says, why don't Democrats ever base anything on merit? We do, Gary. I don't know. What a weird question. Mia says, do you believe in my body, my choice? Yes, I do. Cynthia Massey says, do you think Trump will be removed from office? Probably not. I think that if people do the work and we're able to have free and fair and safe elections 26 and 28, and if Democrats do as well in those elections as they should, if people do the work to have them do as good as they should, then Trump will be removed from office because he will lose that election. But if people don't do that work, it is his goal to remain president until he dies, and potentially hand the presidency down to his kids, the way that kings would hand the kingship down to the princes and shit like that. So, you know, yeah, there's nothing like what do you call it? There's nothing inevitable about Trump refusing to leave office or something like that. It's just whether or not people like you and me decide to do the work to stop him. And if anybody, I'm always talking about the work. What's the work? What's the work? If you ever want to know what the work is, just ask me what the work is. But also, if you go to my Discord, I have a thread posted called The Work. That is what the work is. So you can check that at your leisure. Super Snake says, can't run another term. I mean, he also is not allowed to fucking do a coup, but he tried to do that, Super Snake. The law is not going to stop Trump. He's going to try. whether or not, what mechanism he uses to stay in office, whether it's declaring martial law and canceling elections, whether he petitions the Supreme Court or the Republican Congress to give him an exemption to allow him to try to run for a third term, he's going to try, Super Snake. I appreciate your comment, Super Snake, but he is going to try. And that kind of like, don't worry, it's not going to happen, it's illegal, that is just lulling people into a false sense of security, which I think it is not productive to lie to people like that. Dan Blackwood says, Steve Bannon says they're working on it. Believe him. I do believe him. Diary Girl says, if he dies in office, will it get better? It will. So what Trump's value is he is very attractive to the MAGA base. The MAGA base is very politically active. They hold together a Republican coalition. Without Trump, who is sort of like the cult of personality leader of that group, then there's nobody to pick up the mantle. Nobody has the charisma or the decades of gaslighting America into thinking that he's a good businessman and starring in The Apprentice and shit like that. Other politicians will try. DeSantis will try. Cruz will try. Hawley will try, but they'll fail. They have always failed. I'm worried that we might see somebody with some charm actually be able to do what Trump did, but right now there's nobody. Mia said, did you attend the No Kings protest? I did, because I believe in protests, and I thought that this one especially had a lot of juice to be a massive protest. And so me and the wife went out, and we were there, we marched, we shouted, we stood up, and we were counted. And because of me and her and everybody else that was there, we were able to make that the largest single day of protesting in American history. Estimates anywhere between 5 and 10 million people were there. Conservative estimates are saying 5 million, but I'm going to say 7 as like a, that feels like a fair, thing, to go on the bottom edge of the median, all right, this person just says Stein, and that's anti-Semitic, so you're out of here, person with exactly 0 followers. Later. Mingo says the No Kings protest was pointless. America didn't have a king and still doesn't. Mingo, are you here in good faith? Are you ready to engage, or are you just here to start a fight? Because I'm not going to fight you. The reason why the No Kings protest existed is because Trump has been acting like a king. He has been trying to be a dictator, and there are certain mechanisms in the government that have been holding up our democracy, but they are struggling under the weight of Donald Trump and the Republican Party and the billionaire class trying to dismantle our country and democracy. So to say that that was pointless for us to all stand up and be with each other and let our voices be heard by the powerful establishment and get covered on the news as a fucking thing that 7 million people cared so much about that they went to the streets and did the largest protest in American history, that's not pointless at all. But if you're here in good faith, let's engage, my man. Booth says, just more shouting at the sky. That's not a question. Ask a question or you're out of here. Zach says, bro, should start a watch party for World War III. I don't know. Aizma for Animals says, MAGA, you are welcome. We were marching for you to keep your freedoms as well. We were marching for everybody to keep their freedoms. Lauren says, protests make a huge difference. Lauren is correct, but we also have to do other things as well. We can't just protest. We got to do the rest of the work as well. And if you want to know what the work is, go to my Discord. I got it pinned. Booth says, you might not be the resistance if Walmart is funding your cause. Booth, I don't know what you're talking about, but also ask a question or you're out of here. Mother Plucker says, all these MAGAs blindly ignoring the facts that Trump is trying to move towards a dictatorship. I mean, some of them are ignoring it, some of them are bots, and some of them are people who are stuck in an information bubble. I practice and I preach radical empathy, so let's all start from there, everybody. Facts hurts, LOL says, marching to end our votes. Not sure what that means. Sorry for Tomorrow says, honestly, has Trump managed to run for a third term? What keeps Obama from doing it? So the mechanism by which Trump is going to try to run for a third term or stay in office is still up in the air. If what he does is petitions the Supreme Court or the Republican Congress to pass something or allow something to happen for him to run for a third term, I guarantee you that the language will be very specific and it will be just for him. There's not going to be a thing that says, oh, term limits don't exist for presidents anymore, and then Obama can run. It will be Donald Trump is X, Y, and Z, and therefore he is given permission to run for a third term or something like that. Clyde says he'll just cheat again. He will, but we can stop him. Facts heard, LOL says, here, I'll dumb it down for you. Majority of the country voted for Trump. The left wants to overturn our votes. Facts hurts, you are not here in good faith, so you are out of here. Congratulations. Booth says, who donated to promote the No King's Day movement? LOL. I believe a lot of, small dollar donations. I think Walmart also, like one of the people that owns Walmart is gave money to the No Kings. I think like some lady who's in the Walmart family or something. Let's see here. Someone says, politically speaking, could there be an alternative dimension where you're topping me off? I do believe in the multiverse theory, but there's no universe where that's happening. I'm so sorry. Alex says, every liberty and freedom we have was given by Democrats, Social Security, right to vote, unemployment. That is accurate, Alec. Mingo said, he says multiple times he won't run for a third term. I'm just curious. He's a liar, Mingo. He's a liar. He's a liar. He's already selling Trump 2028 merch. He's a liar. He tried to stay in office after losing the first term. He has joked about it all the time, like, oh, I might stay in office. I might, the last election was stolen from me. So, I mean, I should be able to have another term in office, But yeah, you can't trust any fucking thing that he says. If he denies something, he's lying about it. He said he wasn't going to do Project 2025 up until, he got elected. And then lo and behold, he's literally doing Project 2025 and his cabinet is Project 2025. His cabinet is all fucking billionaires. He's a liar. He's a liar, bingo. He's a liar. Myall Hamilton says, based on 10 criteria of your choice, has there ever been a worse president than Trump? Probably not. Texas Ranger says, does your wife have a boyfriend? No, but I am fucking your mom. So technically, I am your mom's boyfriend. Sean Ryan says, imagine a 5-time draft dodger wanting a veteran like me to salute him. I'll die first. Thank you for your service, Sean. Pammy says, hopefully he won't make it through this one. Fingers crossed. Let's see here. Spiritually Sexy says, I'm afraid 2026 is already set to be rigged. How do we stop that? Spiritually Sexy. Excellent question. So, is it possible that the malware is already in the voting machines? Is it possible that the voter suppression methods that have been, flipping elections to Republicans, like closing down polling locations in Democratic areas and voter ID laws and throwing away ballots because the quote unquote signatures don't work and getting rid of ballot boxes and early voting and vote by mail? Is it possible that all of those things exist right now and will make it either difficult or impossible for Democrats to win upcoming elections? Yes, that is possible, but that does not mean that that is going to be the case in 2026, because we can stop that if people like me and you do the work. If we get 3.5% of the population on board with this project, then that's not a problem anymore. We can petition our secretaries of state to, refresh or investigate the voting machines. We can open up Democratic polling stations, even in red states, to make things more fair. We can do that. That is the work that is ahead of us. They want you to think that it's game over. That is the most important part of this, like sure, maybe, of course, but what do they want you to think? That it's game over. Don't even fucking worry about it. Throw your hands in the air like you just don't care, because resistance is futile, my guy. And so what? So what are we going to do? I say, number one, let's do the work to fucking fix it, but also let's do the work because fuck those guys. Fuck those guys who are telling us that resistance is futile. Resistance, it's not fucking futile until I say it's fucking futile, you weird ass fucking dorks. Man, you want me just to fucking give up? Well, fucking kiss my butthole. Sorry, I got a little spicy there, everybody. SGWSQ over on Twitch says hello. Hello back. Alrighty, Milo Hamilton says, do you think the soldiers practice that shuffle march on Saturday? From everything that I have heard, that morale in the armed services is in the gutter because of the way that Trump is treating them. Like, the National Guard does not want to be in California. The Marines do not want to be in California. The military does not want to waste their fucking time doing a stupid-ass military march that nobody is there for. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw reporting that said that they did that on purpose. Booth says, let's pay more in taxes until it's fixed. That's not a question, Booth. You have been warned, so congratulations. You are out of here. Jorge Morel says, I think media, Fox News, CAN have infected our brains and is the primary cause of our division. You're close, Jorge. It's billionaires. So there's right-wing media and there's the rest of the media, okay? The rest of the media, they have their flaws, they have their problems, but it's different than right-wing media. Right-wing media is statistically data-driven, scientific analysis has found it is 20% accurate. 80% of the things they say on right-wing media is false. Centrist media, legacy media, what their issue is they have a profit motive. So they need to sell stories that sell papers and get clicks. Additionally, part of their value is appearing as unbiased as possible. So they tend to water down negative headlines against Republicans to seem impartial, and they tend to overhype negative headlines around Democrats to seem impartial. It's the reason why there were so many more, triple exclamation point stories about Hillary's email in 2016, whereas Trump is literally like stealing money from kids with cancer through his charity, and there's nothing about it, So yeah, it is the goal of the billionaire class to get us fighting amongst ourselves so that we can ignore the fact that they are working against us. But there is a big difference between right-wing media and Republican politicians and the rest of the mainstream media and Democratic politicians. It's not, they're not all working together in cahoots, There's better and there's worse. And so it's important to focus on and support better over worse. Chris 10 says, would ranked choice voting get rid of the primaries? It wouldn't get rid of the Would it get rid of the primaries? I don't think so. I haven't seen that happen anywhere. Like, we have ranked choice voting for local elections in New York, and so there's ranked choice voting for the primary candidates, and then also there was ranked choice voting for, I'm pretty sure there was ranked choice voting in the general election. I was there during the Eric Adams election, and so I remember voting in that ranked choice, and I don't remember voting in ranked choice in the general, but I think it's only because there were two candidates in that one. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible, but I do think that we still, for all intents and purposes, we still have primaries. Jesus says, do you think there will be time where immigrants won't have to live in fear? If we do the work, Jesus, if we do the work. Sorry for Tomorrow says, how far out are we from America being willing to accept a woman as president? Potentially, we're already there, but we just haven't seen it yet. Chris says, will there ever be a change in mindset of indoctrinated Trump supporters? Yes, Chris, if we do the work. Scott123 says, could America pull off a burial at sea for Trump? I don't know, maybe. Jose Arujo says, I think one of the stated do-ha ranked choices too. One of the stated, I'm not really sure what that is. And Misa for Animals says, know your enemy. Behind Project 2025 is Opus DEI, by a book, Opus, by Gareth Gore, Catholic King. Interesting. I have not read that, but seems pretty interesting to me. Let's see here. I think one of the states do ranked choices for the general also. No, I don't know about that, Jose, but if you say so, I believe you. Immortal says, thoughts on the NYC mayoral race? I am for the progressive candidates like Zoran, I think his name is, and Mamdani and Brad Lander. I think those guys are both great. If it was me voting there, I would go Mamdani number 1, Lander 2, and everybody else can go fucking die. Jay Mizzle, you just said false information, Jay Mizzle. Weren't you here before, Jay Mizzle? Didn't we hang out on a fucking live stream before, Jay Mizzle? Don't break my heart. Start acting like a fucking troll, my man. Dairy Girl says, do you think he is just a front man for Project 2025 and not actually smart enough to run anything? I think that's pretty accurate, Dairy Girl. He's not a reader. He's not a policy guy. He's a blunt force object. He's a 2x4, just fucking swinging around wildly. Yeah. He's not masterminding anything. He's let the masterminds in the henhouse because they have convinced him that they will help him become an authoritarian dictator. Matthew Rutledge says, isn't the rest of the media corporate media rather than liberal? Yeah, it is 100% accurate, Matthew. I mean, there's also progressive media, though, like MSNBC and Crooked. Like, they at least are honest about how shitty the Republican Party is, in addition to calling balls and strikes when Democrats do shitty things as well. The Army's birthday parade, while No King's got 10% of Kamala's voters. Dylan Watson says 250,000 attendees at the Army's birthday parade. which is not accurate, Dylan, at all. The highest number that I have seen projected for that was 50K, and I think that's being very generous. And to say that No Kings got 10% of Kamala's voters, that's still millions of people, my man. Yeah, you're really telling on yourself there, my man, Dylan. You are twisting the digits to try to make it seem like your side is winning when it is not. I do not believe that you're in good faith, so I do not mind being spicy to you. All right, scrolling down the bottom. Spiritually Sexist says, wasn't it 10K? That is what I was seeing as well. Let's see here. Patty P says, brother calling MSNBC honest is wild. All news outlets are so biased. Patty P, every media outlet has some kind of a bias because they are run by humans and humans have a bias. Additionally, any media that needs money is going to be biased by a profit motive. But there's a big difference between the kind of reporting that you see out of progressive outlets like MSNBC and Crooked, the kind of reporting that you see out of legacy and centrist media like the New York Times or AP or fucking BBC, and right-wing media. And it is very important to not lump them all together and say they are all corporate, brainwash, bullshit propaganda, because there's worse and there's better. And MSNBC is good. You know, I know that there's people on the right who don't think so because they've been told that it's not the case, but it is good. Owen O'Neill says politics doesn't matter, waffles or pancakes. I find that to be a very political question. Dairy Girl says, is it legal for him to hawk goods while he's president? No, it is not, Dairy Girl. It is illegal for people to make money off of their political positions. Let's see here. Calvin says, what do you think about the riots in LA? I do not condone any kind of violence or property damage. That being said, the protests in Los Angeles were mostly peaceful. And anybody that was doing property damage or violence, throw them in jail. Adnan Salazar says, should the U.S. keep up their imperialist ambitions? No. Jojo Grow, thank you. I love your vibe too. Jesus says goodbye. Thank you for answering these questions. Thank you for being here, Jesus. Appreciate you. Preston Stark 599 says, will DNC ever have actual primaries again, or will the leadership continue to select the candidates? So the DNC has been having primaries every decade. For every election, they've had primaries. They had a primary for 2024. They had a primary for 2020. They had a primary for 2016. The narrative that the DNC chooses the candidates is wildly overstated. Let's go through the elections. 2016, the DNC did put their finger on the scale to help Hillary Clinton, but I am not convinced that that made any fucking difference whatsoever, because Hillary Clinton got millions more votes than Bernie Sanders. And I was canvassing for Bernie. I was doing the work for Bernie. And even I have to admit, he lost that primary. He lost it fair and square. And yes, what the DNC did, it was shitty. They have preferential candidates that they help out. But still, I don't think that made a difference because, again, Hillary just ran away with that. 2020, exact same thing happened. Biden got preferential treatment by the DNC. But again, he fucking ran away with it. You know, people said, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders split the vote. If you added all their numbers together, it would not equal the number of votes that Biden got at that point in the election. So, yeah, you know, I'm not convinced. In 2024, there was a primary. There was a guy named Dean Phillips who ran against Joe Biden. Nobody voted for him. And then when Biden dropped out of the race, they had exactly 100 days to pick a candidate. And so they made the best of a bad situation. And they chose the vice president, who technically everybody voted for in the primary because she was on the ballot with Joe Biden. You know, and she was the most logical choice, and it fucking sucked. But, you know, that's what you got to do when Joe Biden makes a really selfish decision to try to run for a second term when he is not physically capable of doing that. Tomorrow says, how is Trump able to make money off his hotels, shoes, Bibles, etc.? The reason why is because the Republican Party is in charge of every lever of power right now. The only way we could stop him is if the Department of Justice went after him, if Congress went after him, if the Supreme Court hadn't made it impossible to go after presidents for breaking the law with their fucking, you know, immunity decision. So, yeah, you know, and none of them want to go after him. None of them are willing to do that because they like what he is doing. They like the authoritarianism. They like the fact that he is going after marginalized groups of people and trying to entrench Republican rule in this country. You know, it is fully unethical and unconstitutional that they are asleep at the wheel and allowing him to do this, and it is reason 1,568,200 blah blah blah. Right, I don't think anybody should ever vote for a Republican politician ever again. VT says, and yes, they knew Joe had terminal cancer for multiple years. There is no evidence of that, VT. Quinn says, who do you want to run for Democrats in 28? I'm not focused on 28. I'm focused on 26. We got to get people to vote for Democrats in the midterms. GI Robot says, are you ready to die for Israel? Absolutely not. Well, excuse me. Reba N says, why is Congress or Senate stepping in? Why are they not stepping in, Reba? Can you be more specific? GI Robot says, these world leaders need to 1v1 each other. I mean, sure. Well, excuse me, guys. Woo, so sorry. Reba, because they are in control of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is either fully on board with Trump's corruption and fascism, or they're scared of him. They're scared of being primaried, or they're scared of violence from his fan base. And it is, again, a reason why nobody should ever vote for Republicans ever again. They are letting this happen. They are letting ICE happen. They are letting the corruption happen. They are letting the dismantling of our democracy and our government happen. There are people dying, preventable deaths, because AIDS medication and food is just sitting in a warehouse that we've already paid. We already paid for all that shit. And these people are just dying because of it. And American farmers are going hungry. And fucking shelves are empty. And the Republican Party is just letting it all fucking happen. All right. Racing 9601 says ICE is arresting lawbreakers. You know that ICE has admitted that only 10% of the people that they have rounded up are guilty of committing serious crimes. You are aware of that, right? You are aware that ICE has also rounded up citizens and people with zero criminal record and legal residence. Are you aware of that, Racing 9601? Just curious. Reba says, wow, then they should have never took the job if something like this scares them. I agree with you, Reba, and it is the reason why I am constantly telling people not to vote for Republicans, and in fact, to vote against Republicans for Democrats. They are the best. Racing says that's not true. That's not a question, so you are out of here. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Patrick, Innovative Selling, says, what are your thoughts about Tucker Carlson on Steve Bannon? I mean, they all fucking suck. I like watching people that I hate fight each other. You know, like, use your fist, use bats, guys. Really fucking go to town on each other. But I also don't buy it. You know, like, I know that when the shit hits the fan, they're going to be working together to fuck us all over. They're going to work. They're going to join ranks with the billionaire class in order to install a fucking fascist dictatorship in this country so that the rest of us have to all become fucking wage slave serfs, drinking the fucking runoff from their chemical factories while they're all fucking eating lobster and caviar 3 meals a day, flying around in their fucking private jets to their fucking mega mansions and mega yachts. But yeah, it's fun to watch them fight, I guess. Moneybag Joe says, vote red always. No, opposite. Also, that's not a question. So you are out of here. Eru Abraham says, update with Landers' arrest. No, but I gotta say that with Brad Landers getting arrested, we have reached the point where I am like, okay, they are arresting Democrats. Like, they're doing it. You know, like, you could make excuses for like one or two, like, they, you know, they were just trying to send a message with that one, or, you know, that was a, you know, a miscommunication, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're arresting Democrats. This is fucking DEFCON 1, man. 5-alarm fire. Like, this is fucking bananas. I can't even remember all the Democrats that they've arrested and that they have filed charges against, fucking, you know, fraudulent bullshit charges, you know. If nothing motivates you to do the fucking work, like, let this be that fucking thing. They are throwing Democrats in jail for fucking nothing, guys. Reba, I completely agree. Are you doing the work, Reba? Are you doing the work? I hope you are. You seem like you got a good head on your shoulders. VT says silent when they did it to Trump. They did not do that to Trump, VT. And guess what? You have reached my breaking point. You are out of here. Congratulations. Let's see here. I do not know who Raiders are bums. I don't know who that Drew fellow is. The Fabric Cobbler says, I'm a retired vet. Vote blue. Thank you for your service, Fabric. VT says, do you think the New York charges against Trump are legitimate? They 100% were, VT, but you're not here to hear that anymore because I figured out that you are full of shit. Alrighty. Let's see what we got here. Alex, Trump signed an executive order so Democratic veterans won't be covered at the VA. So Alex, that is mostly accurate, but I am one of my crusades in doing these live streams is fighting against some of the shorthand that we use when we discuss these issues. So yes, 100% Trump changed the rules at the VA to allow people at the VA to discriminate against you based on your marital status and your political beliefs. Now, that will most likely result in, unmarried women and Democrats being refused service at the VA. But the order does not say discriminate against Democrats and unmarried women. So I think it's important to be specific about that because otherwise they can easily paint us as, catastrophizing, Democrats and shit like that. Adri says thoughts on generative AI. AI mostly does not work. It's an incredible technology, but it mostly does not work. And it eats up so much fucking electricity. No human being should ever be using it. People are doing cute things with it, like, check it out. I made you with a cat's head and on a broomstick and shit like that. And I'm like, cool. You just used an entire day's worth of electricity going into Las Vegas. So yeah, this is another one of my crusades. It's just I don't have the power to stop AI companies from doing what they're going to do, but maybe I can stop people from just using ChatGPT as the new Google and shit like that. So yeah, I'm not saying you got to use Google. I know it sucks these days, but yeah, guys, can we please stop using AI in cryptocurrency? It is eating up all of the electricity and just pumping tons of carbon into the atmosphere, man. We are really fucking ourselves over here. Brandon says, just to confirm, only questions asked by people you agree with will be allowed to stay. No debating. No, Brandon. I only block people who don't ask questions. You can ask questions, and even if I don't agree with you, if you are a Republican or a centrist or a tanky or whatever, I will answer your question if it is asked in good faith. But if you just spam the comments with right-wing propaganda or cynical propaganda, then yeah, I do boot people for that. Brandon says, I do enjoy listening. Can I stay? 100% you can stay. But, if you want to ask a question, you feel free to ask a question. Dairy Girl says, should there be a max age limit for Congress, senators, presidents? So sick of Pelosi and Schumer. I wouldn't be against that. Yeah, absolutely. I think people should have some fucking skin in the game. If you're going to, if you're going to be making decisions about what happens in this country for the next 50 years, you should maybe be around for the next 50 years. 5 Amu 3L1 says, this the guy that loves socialism. I mean, I like socialism. I like communism. I like capitalism. This is not a, what do you call it? This is not a zero-sum game. We have socialism and communism here in America already. We have employee-run companies that are doing quite well. And we have socialism where we have things that we all pay for by contributing tax money. And that's the reason why we have paved roads and fire departments and public schools and the military and shit like that, And I just think that maybe America needs a little more socialism and communism because we seem a little full up of capitalism right now. Let's see here. Motion Light says, is Amon the best political creator or is it Hassan? I think it's Jared Bernstein. It's Isaac Man says, what are your thoughts on Netanyahu? He is a far-right ideologue, piece of shit, war criminal, and the people of Israel would do well to remove him from office and throw him in fucking jail. Black Fatigue says military socialism too. Yeah, it is. We pay for it using tax dollars. It is a public good. It's literally socialism, man. I don't know where you're going with this, man. The Fabric Cobbler says, what are your thoughts on permanent retirement health care for Congress, even after only one term? Ooh, interesting question. On the one hand, I think that if you work for the government, your experience should be the median experience of everybody living in your district. You should make that amount of money, and it will potentially incentivize you to, to do better for your constituents. And at the same time, I feel like people deserve a pension. Every human deserves a pension. But I do think that we coddle our politicians a little bit too much, especially as they are, cutting benefits for people's Medicare, Medicaid, and welfare and shit like that. So, yeah, I think that something could be done to even that up, But yeah, Truth Fact says, why are red southern states high welfare, poor education? Because they are petri dishes for libertarian trickle-down economic bullshit, So they have low taxes, which means they have no government services or poor government services, poor education, poor quality of life, poor healthcare outcomes. It's really cheap to live there because it sucks, you know. Diego Vargas says, "Did you see Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks destroying Emily Schrader? That was priceless." I honestly, Diego, I don't know who any of those people are that you just mentioned. Black Fatigue says, "Black, black, black, black." Cool. Brandon says, "What are your thoughts on the Second Amendment? Should we all give up our guns?" Serious question. So, I have a different view of this than most of the Democratic Party. Most of the Democratic Party is open to private gun ownership, and they just believe in more responsible gun laws, things like mandatory gun safety classes, mandatory gun licensing, mandatory universal background checks, insurance. If you're going to have a gun, you should have insurance to pay for something happening with that gun potentially. Personally, I think that we should be working towards a zero gun society. If I was God Emperor, that would be my policy. But I understand that that is a much more radical position than the rest of the Democratic Party. So I'm not going to, I'm not dogmatic. I'm not going to die on that hill. Truth Facts says, "How do you feel about having gun laws like Europe? In Europe, they do background checks every year." I love it, Truth Facts. Let's fucking do that. All right, everybody. It is an hour in, and so feel free to send in some final questions. Diego Guevara says, "LOL, you're progressive, but you don't watch the Young Turks. Who do you watch from the progressive media outlets?" I almost watch zero. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot of news. So I like Crooked Media and I like the Reddit news feed. So I get things from the AP and the BBC and the Guardian UK and MSNBC and I check out ground news as well. But yeah, I don't really care for the Young Turks. Honestly, I found a couple of those people kind of annoying, and so yeah. But I don't know. Sorry, Diego Vargas, you're a regular. Why are you throwing stones at my fucking progressive bona fides, bro, man? Is my progressive CV not strong enough for you? I have to watch the Young Turks so I don't get to be a progressive? Come on, man. What the fuck? You're a regular, Diego Vargas. Have I not proven my progressive bona fides to you, my man? Come on. Reba M says, "Do you think Trump will eventually be impeached or arrested?" Yes, Reba, if people like me and you do the work, and if we recruit other people to do the work as well, because we've got to get as many people doing this work as we possibly can. Jason Hunt says, "Do you really think we should be giving insurance companies any more money?" I mean, it's weird to focus on that one specific issue. Like we are already giving insurance companies money for housing insurance and car insurance and health insurance, but gun insurance, that's a little bit too much. How about this? How about we get rid of health insurance and have universal health care, and then we can replace that with gun insurance money? That seems like a pretty fair trade to me. Let's see here. All right, everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the questions and the comments and the gifts and the likes and the shares. I appreciate any support that you want to give me and my live streams and my channel, whether it's the free kind like likes and shares and telling all your friends how great my live streams are and telling them you got to check out Jared Berenstein. He's the best political live streamer there is. And if you got any questions, he's the guy to ask. Or if you want to do the paid kind, you can. You don't have to. I know we're all struggling. But I have a Patreon you can join. I got 4 patrons. They're lonely, though. They need you to join them. I also have a store that you can buy things from. You can find both of those things on my website, jaredberenstein.com. And, of course, you can send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and subscribe and all that good stuff. But, again, you don't have to if you don't want it. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. My schedule is up on my website, and also I try to have TikTok events scheduled, but I slacked on that this week. Apologies for that. If there were any questions that I was not able to get to or that you think of later, my DMs are open. And also, you can email me through my website, jaredberenstein.com. I am down for engaging in good faith. If you got questions, you can also go to my Discord. My Discord is a great resource. I've got recommendations for podcasts, for books, and I have a whole thread posted that is the work, the things that you can do to try to help in this moment, because we need people to be doing the work. Like, that is the most important thing. We are the only ones who can save us right now, and we got to recruit other people to do this work with us, because I can't do it by myself, guys. And the 105 people, if we're all people are watching right now on TikTok and maybe more over on Twitch and YouTube, and me, 110 people, we can't do this by ourselves. We gotta get more people involved in this work, guys. All right, let's see here. Save Ferris says Democrats are pro-Iran now. What a weird thing to say. Also, that's not a question, Save Ferris, so you are out of here. Alrighty. Diego Vargas says, did Trump just help Gavin Newsom prepare for 2028? Potentially Diego Vargas, but Gavin's been preparing for 2028 for a long time now. So, yeah, it's possible that he helped. That the whole standing up to him, sending in the Marines and the National Guard is going to be good for his image in the presidential. But I guess we'll wait and see how the primary go. Cuz says thoughts on the whole Israel-Iran conflict. This would not have happened if Trump was not in office, because Trump is a green light to Netanyahu and his extremely right-wing government in Israel. Trump was working on a new nuclear deal with Iran to try to keep them from getting a nuclear weapon. We had one. Trump threw it in the garbage for no fucking reason. He just didn't like the fact that it had Obama's fucking name on it. So he threw that in the garbage. Now he is desperately trying to negotiate a new treaty that was sort of similar or kind of exactly the same as the one that he threw in the garbage that Obama did. And then Netanyahu just goes and fucking starts a war with Iran. He pulled the trigger on that to stop Trump from having a new nuclear deal with Iran. Trump is letting Netanyahu drag America into this war by some measure of assistance, either just money and weapons, or having our aircraft carriers shoot down projectiles into Israel, or potentially boots on the ground. Like, we don't fucking know where that's going to go. I think it's unlikely that we do boots on the ground, but still. So yeah, it is just further evidence of Trump being weak, being fucking led around by the collar, by people like Putin and Netanyahu. And yeah, the fucking no new wars president. Give me a fucking break, guys. Yeah. Unbelievable. This is his fucking incompetence. This is his inability to do any kind of meaningful diplomacy. It's fucking his fault, man. It is all fucking Trump's fault. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Check me out tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Have an excellent rest of your Tuesdays. Do your self-care. Do the work. Be good to yourselves. Be good to others. And I will see you tomorrow, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye.